we are trained to ask, what should we do? What does the strategy enable us? What does the regulation require? But actually, you have flipped this around, and you've said that a leader's most important I decision is not what to use it for, but also what to never use it for. So you've written in length in your book for that, but how does a leader make that call? And what does getting that response wrong look like in practice?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I want to root this conversation in the fact that we are talking about how we can consciously engage with AI, and the fact that many people are having quite a reductive view right now, which is how much money can we save? How many people do we no longer have to employ? Which we're seeing over and over again. People have to reverse that decision when they make it. Klarna is an example. There are many other examples of organizations that have cut staff or have said to themselves, you know, we don't need to recruit people anymore. And they've quickly realized this isn't the case. So, I start from the opposite view, which is we don't need to remove people. I think the first thing to do is root yourself in what is human and what do you need to think about. So, to develop people, truly develop people as a leader, as a manager, there's a different kind of relationship that AI cannot replicate. AI can give you advice, give you knowledge, but it cannot sit in the room with you and really unlock your true potential, in my opinion. So I think as a strategy, you need to be rooted in that. What does it mean to be human, and what cannot be replaced? Even if Claude gives me empathy, it's not real empathy. It's what it's been trained to say, but doesn't have feelings. So I think that's the first thing we need to think about. What do we want to keep human, and what do we value about humanity? I think also recognizing decisions you should never automate. Never, ever. There are many decisions that we should never try or consider automating. Life or death for starters, I think. We can use AI to help us in the thinking process, but the decision should be human. So I think that's something that we need to consider. And things like performance conversations, redundancy decisions, safeguarding, bereavement support, those are not inefficiencies to optimize. They are moments when you need real humans as part of it. So I think the starting point is knowing, what do I value about being human? What do I want to keep human? I think these are great questions, great thoughts for yourself. And then, I think there's some thoughts about how you make calls. So you asked, what about when it goes wrong? Could I explain to the person affected why a machine got this wrong? If the answer is no, then there's a problem, because it should be explainable. The process should be explainable and it should be clear. And if we don't know ourselves, then there's an issue. I think the second one to be thinking about is, does this process require contextual judgment? And increasingly, when I use AI, it is that question. You're missing the context. So you're giving me this information, but it's not the right answer, because there are things that you don't know. AI has data. It doesn't have wisdom. That's what humans have. And from the preview you've had of my book, there's the U in my model, which stands for understand what you are automating. So before you automate anything, you have to ask, who designed this process and whose interest does it serve? You talked about your amazing keynote, which has a focus on women. Whose interest does this serve? Does the thing I'm automating serve women, serve men, serve other groups? Whose interest does it serve? We need to understand that.
Absolutely. So understanding what we value about human, what we want to honor and to take care of, and what then looking at what is it that we want to increase as efficiencies.